Did you ever stop to think about how awesome it would be to have your very own clone?
Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Inevitably. See, I'm glad we're on the same wavelength. See, great minds. Exactly.
Well, in the original, clones are made to hunt down and kill their original self.
Maybe we should rethink this cloning thing.
The Original is a sci-fi mystery thriller audio novella by Brandon Sanderson and Mary Robinette Kowal. This is a collab that I had very high hopes for going into it, and I'm happy to say that I wasn't disappointed. It's no surprise that Sanderson is one of my favorite authors. I've talked about his books a lot on my channel. However, I've never read anything by Mary Robinette Kowal, but she is an author I've been very interested in reading ever since I was first introduced to the Writing Excuses podcast, where she's one of the hosts along with Sanderson. I'd recommend checking it out if you're a writer. The Original is a fairly short audio novella. It's around 3.5 hours in total, and it is an audio-only experience as of yet. I'm assuming in the future it's probably going to get a physical publication, but I think that it works extremely well as an audiobook. I'll get into my thoughts on the sound design later on into the review, but the narration by Julia Whelan does an amazing job at bringing this story and bringing all the emotions of this character to life. And right after filming this review, I should have an interview up with Julia Whelan, so make sure to check that out after watching this video. Now, this is going to be a spoiler-free review. I'll be going over the basics of what this story is about, talk about some of the world building, and give you my pros and cons. Now, let's start off by talking about the main premise. The story is set in a near-future version of Earth, where technology has advanced so that people can check into renewal stations that inject them with reparative nanites. These nanites destroy disease and repair cells to make you immune to aging, effectively making one immortal. Every law-abiding citizen is given access to these renewal stations every week, and every single time they renew, it stores a copy of their memories and their personality and their genetic code. So in the event that you die, you can be recloned with all your memories intact. And the government can only legally use this data if you have a warrant out for your arrest, and they need to make a clone of yourself to track down yourself. Because who better to find you than you?
Identity theft is not a joke, Jim.
This leads me to Holly Windseed. Now, the story starts off with Holly waking up in a hospital bed with her memories scattered, and she discovers that she is a provisional replica, a clone that has been equipped with most of her original memories and some new combat skills edited in. They only make provisional replicas if somebody has committed a terrible act, and in this case, the original Holly has been convicted of murdering her husband and is on the run, so it's up to this replica to track down and kill her original self within 4 days, or be terminated. This is understandably a lot for Holly to take in and to come to terms with the fact that she harmed her husband, and her investigation into finding herself gets even more complicated when she's also given the task to infiltrate and take down a terrorist organization known as Icon. Since this is a first-person story, we spend a lot of time in Holly's head getting her internal thoughts and worries, and Julia Whelan brings a lot of character to Holly's voice. This is a character that's confused about the crime that she committed, and the amount of angst and just emotion in her performance is what immediately hooked me into the story. The plot kept me engaged the entire time. In fact, I kind of wish that there was a little bit more to this novella, and while overall it was very fast-paced, the pacing, it wasn't perfect. There were a few stutters here and there where it just wasn't so smooth, but it was never enough to make me lose interest in the story. And the conclusion to this novella, I would say, was pretty satisfying. It's something you kind of see coming, but I think it was handled very well. The main premise isn't entirely original to the sci-fi genre. In fact, it kind of reminded me of Altered Carbon, though Altered Carbon is a lot darker in tone. We've seen a lot of similar things done before. Even Sanderson himself has noted how Will Smith's recent movie, Gemini Man, shares some similarities. So while this main premise isn't really new to sci-fi, and it doesn't need to be, there is still a lot of unique things that this story brings to the table, especially when you take a look at some of the world building and the technology. There is a surprising amount of world building in this novella, and it works really well for such a short piece. I can imagine that it would work really well in a full-length novel as well, so I'm hoping to see that we'll get some more stories that are taking place in this world at some point. What I would easily consider one of the most interesting and unique aspects to this world is that these nanites do more than just make someone immune to disease and aging. They can also change the way that people perceive the world. Each person is given freedom to theme what they see, including architecture, clothing design, and even music. Most buildings are actually just plain white, but with theming, the buildings can adopt the architectural design that each individual chooses. But this control that one has over their visual environment has some discomforting and dystopian implications. For instance, you can choose what people look like. If you don't like the way somebody looks, you can choose how they look, and you can also block people in real life. And it's easy to imagine how this technology can make someone lose touch with reality. Those that choose to live a normal life without nanites are known as checkouts, and they're often regarded with some suspicion. And we see people go to the extreme on both sides. We get to see both the positives and the negatives of this society, and it's both fascinating and scary. Speaking of theming, let's talk about the themes, the themes of the story. The original investigates some very sci-fi themes, focusing a lot on ideas of identity, as well as the ethics of cloning, government privacy, and technological dependence. A lot of these are themes that you see a lot of in sci-fi, but I feel like they were tackled really well here, especially for just a sci-fi novella. There's a lot of full-length novels that don't do it quite as well. It's all presented in a way that makes it feel like a possibility, and it gets you to ask the hard questions about what we do in these situations. Now let's talk about the sound design. So I was sent an early copy to review of the original by Mainframe, and Mainframe produced this audiobook. They are a company that's founded by Brandon Sanderson and his friend and business partner Max Epstein, and I feel like Mainframe did a really good job at creating a balance, because I'm somebody who I love music and sound effects in my audiobooks. I know that a lot of people do not like that. Here I feel like it's pretty well balanced. The sound effects and the music, they never are really competing with the narrator's voice. I found the sound production to actually add more tension and suspense to the experience. For instance, when Holly's heartbeat is pounding and you hear her pounding heart combined with all the sound effects, it just really immerses you in her feelings of stress and fear, and it just really elevated the experience for me, which is why I think this does work very well as an audio format. So overall, I would say that the original is a fun, fast-paced sci-fi thriller with a fantastic narration and audio production, and while it may not have the most original concept in the sci-fi genre, it is executed very well. It's going to keep you on your toes, it's going to keep you entertained, and I would say that if you've enjoyed some of Sanderson's other short stories like Legion or Snapshot, then you're going to enjoy this one. And hey, if after watching this video you want some more thoughts on the original, I'm going to leave links to Daniel Green's video as well as Murphy Napier's video, so you guys can check those out as well. Anyway, if you want to listen to the original, I will leave an Amazon link down below, and of course I get a small commission from that, which is much appreciated. And if you want to help support the channel and have your name added to the magical scroll, then make sure to check out my Patreon.
So, what now, Doctor? Well, time to get cracking, Doctor.